What is up, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time. You know the drill. Two of the sharpest minds in the biz hanging out with me. We got Kyle Murray in the house. And then we got Bobby Gomes, who's trying to convince me he's tall. And so now he's standing like this because he still thinks he can take me one-on-one. What up, Kyle? How are you, man?
I'm good, yeah. Crunch Time NBA debut right now. So looking forward to talking some hoops with you guys.
Okay, well, we're excited to have you.
Welcome to hell. Crunch Time NBA.
Welcome to hell. We got Bobby Gomes in the house as well. What up, Bobby? How are you?
Doing good. Can't wait to get my free 12 points from you, Roth, and see how it goes down.
So if you missed it yesterday, Bobby said he could beat me one-on-one, which is absolutely outrageous. Won't happen. I spotted him 12 points to 15, and I said I'd still beat you.
Biggest mistake of your life.
He's 6'1", 200 pounds, which is how big I am. So now I'm starting to regret those 12 points. But I still think, even with the 12 points, I will crush you. But we are not here to talk about my dominance over you. We are here to talk about our general dominance at DFS. I don't know if it's just me, but this NBA season has been the best stretch of DFS I've ever had in my life. I am consistently 4 or 5Xing every other night. So we've been hot here. I know the content that we've been giving is great, because I'm no basketball whiz. I'm just doing what the experts say, and I've been winning. You feel ready to like keep that streak alive?
Yeah, I feel ready to keep that streak alive. You had good tutoring though. You started off with Meansy and JSU, and then you've been on for a while now. So I feel like you kind of know what you're doing at this point. Are you using the RG Sims, because they are very, very helpful?
I use Lineup HQ, and I have not messed with the Sims a whole lot. Occasionally, I'll throw something in, and those have been doing pretty well also. Make sure if you're not signing up for RG Premium, you should be, because you want the Sims. You want Lineup HQ. You want all that good stuff. And, of course, you want the free content that we bring you tonight. Dancing Fighter G says, yep, me too. I'm killing it. Had a big night last night as well. We're going to get to the content in just a second. Apparently some people saying FanDuel is down. That's interesting.
Can anyone confirm this? I don't know.
Might just be one dude. T from Loke says, does Roth know Bobby has consistently run a sub 4.440? We're just making shit up, right? None of this is true.
No, the thing is, Jake Boa runs a 4.8, and I think I can beat a 4.8.
Okay. All right. I don't think you could.
If Bobby was running a 4.4, he wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
If I was running a 4.4, I wouldn't be here.
If Bobby was 6'1", 200 running a 4.4, he would be somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm trying to like separate fact from fiction, and I'm getting more intimidated that Bobby could actually beat my ass at basketball. But
I want the 12 points.
Yeah.
I haven't played in 2 years. I want the 12 points though.
FanDuel is lagging for some. I guess it's not working for others. So hopefully they can figure that out.
They won't.
Well, you know what? We've got plenty of time. We got to work our way through the slate.
Adam Sandler in the chat.
Oh man, it's so good to see him. Abby Doobie. What's up, Adam Sandler? Good to have you watching. Hey, if you're watching this for free on the YouTube, hit us with the thumbs up. Let's dive into the content. Bobby, I want to let you start. I've been dealing with this weather, Thursday night football weather game in Cleveland. I have looked at nothing for basketball. That's what I did last night, and I smashed. We're running it back. I've looked at nothing. Catch me up, Bobby. What's been going on?
Shoot it to Kyle first, because my stuff's loading. I know we always have this issue. Shoot it to Kyle.
Can you just give me a general overview, and then we'll dive into FanDuel and go position by position?
Yeah, definitely. Pretty small slate, 4 games. So not a ton of news, but in terms of some news that we do have, Scotty Barnes is returning from a pretty lengthy absence. We just got that news. He's going to start and be on a minutes limit. The Jazz and the Spurs game have a few injuries, with Wemby being out, Clarkson being doubtful. We did just get news that Miles Bridges is out for this game against the Pistons. That's the game that locks at 7, so the first game. So that's going to be some pretty solid news to get maybe some more value on the wings there for the Hornets. And overall, just a really good game environment for the Pistons as well. So obviously a fairly small slate, but Cade Cunningham's a guy who I like a lot here. So he's a guy who I think is projecting pretty well and should be a pretty solid option here.
Love it. I try to play him almost every night. I think this is a brilliant idea from Musa. He says, hey, start with DK since FanDuel is down. Okay. done. I think that's smart. Hopefully, Bobby, you weren't just switching to FanDuel.
No, I have both. I have both up now. I have both up
Excellent.
now. Do you?
Let's
do
do
you
it.
want
Let's
to
start with
point
DK.
guards?
Yeah, let's start with
Start
DK.
DK.
Start at point guard and walk me through your favorite plays, and then I'll kind of kick it back and forth as we pinball down.
All right, so both point guards in the Charlotte-Detroit game, whether it be LaMelo or Cade, I think they're both fantastic plays. They're two guys that I want to build around in this 4-game slate. I like both a good bit. Then you can go to Mike Conley at 4.9 for Minnesota. I think he's fine versus Toronto. Jaden Ivey in that Detroit game, he has point guard, shooting guard eligibility, pretty positive. I think he's worth a look for sure. It's a 4-gamer, so you can play him and Cade together, I would imagine. Chris Paul versus San Antonio, I think, is someone you should check out at the point guard position. I think relative to his ownership, I'd probably be underweight on the field. I feel like he's going to be one of the chalkier options. And for me, he's like my 5th ranked point guard currently, to where I wouldn't be like if I'm building one team, Roth, and I was you, I probably wouldn't play Chris Paul at that ownership.
Yeah.
Cody Martin is point guard, small forward eligibility. He's in that Charlotte-Detroit game. I think he's fine. And Edwards, you can always play Ant. Sexton versus San Antonio at 5.4. Don't mind him. Who else? Jalen Suggs versus the Lakers, I think, is an option. For me, Suggs at 13%, I'd probably be underweight to that. Anthony Black's going to be someone who pops for people. I'm going to be under on Anthony Black. He's plays point guard for Orlando. I would imagine, hit the starting lineup. Kyle can kind of get more into that. Kyle, who do you like at the point guard position on DK?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the majority of that list there. I will say I do think, especially now with the Bridges news, the ownership between LaMelo Ball and Cade are going to be pretty significant. I do think Ball will be fairly chalky compared to Cade, so I don't mind pivoting there. Obviously, some added usage there for LaMelo Ball, but for LaMelo, it's also sort of hard to get more usage, right? He's already carrying so much of that offensive load, like 38, 39% usage on the year, so it's difficult to project him for a ton more. So you can kind of argue that he's sort of remaining the same, but people are going to view him differently as getting a huge boost here with Bridges out. So obviously LaMelo is still a great play, but if you're looking to be contrarian, I do think that's a simple pivot there. If you're not playing both, just going Cade over LaMelo Ball for $200 more. I like the call that you had on Chris Paul, not really a guy who I think carries a ton of ceiling here. He's not a guy that's going to play mid-30s minutes. Honestly, I think he's lucky to play like 32 minutes on a normal night. This game does project to stay close with a 3.5-point spread, so that benefits him, but still just not a guy that's going to get up there minutes-wise. So I think you can find some other options in that price range to get a little bit different. Anthony Edwards is another guy who I think will be pretty contrarian. He does have point guard eligibility. This game surprisingly has a closer spread than I would have thought. It did move a little bit. It was 6.5 last night. Now it's at 7.5, I believe, or 7. Obviously Minnesota was a great team last year. Toronto's been struggling. Obviously the return of Barnes helps, but Edwards is going to go pretty overlooked with LaMelo Ball and Cade Cunningham getting a lot of attention there. So I like him as a tournament option as well. You mentioned Ivy. I think that's a great call. Anthony Black, you mentioned as well. I do think he's going to see more minutes, 31, 32 minutes for Black. I think he's fine from a value perspective. We're not seeing a ton of ownership on him right now. So, but I would agree with Bobby if that gets out of hand. Probably a guy I'm not, dying to eat the chalk on. There's another guy who doesn't really bring a ton of ceiling to the table there. One other name I'll mention is Keontae George. I think he'll go pretty overlooked. A lot of people are going to be looking at Colin Sexton. Rightfully so. I think Sexton's a strong play with no Jordan Clarkson, but Keontae George also benefits from Clarkson being out. So I think he could be a tournament pivot option there off of Sexton, who's probably going to be fairly popular tonight.
Okay, good stuff. Take me to shooting guard. What do you like there, Kyle?
Yeah, a lot of these guys actually carry over. So Sexton's also a shooting guard. Anthony Edwards also a shooting guard. Ivy, Anthony Black, but some other names. Stephon Castle. We project him right now for 32 minutes. He's seeing a pretty strong role. And honestly, I think he's just a guy that was going to earn a role as the season went on anyway, just how good he is. And obviously they were very high in him in the draft process. But obviously some injuries have led him to being able to, add some more minutes to the rotation here. So I think he's a strong play at 4,900. And also, early on in his career, but he does appear to be a guy who can sort of fill up the stat sheet in multiple different ways. So you don't necessarily need strong scoring. he had a pretty solid game last time out, and he also shot very poorly from the field, 3 for 13, and still put up 25 DK. The game before that, 25.5 DK and 4 for 11 from the field. So you're expecting some better shooting, excuse me, eventually for Castle. So I think he'll also get better as the season goes on. Shooting wise, Trey Mann, I think is another strong play. A guy who benefits from Bridges being out tonight. It might not be a direct swap minutes wise, with Bridges being more of a 3 or even a 4 on this Charlotte team. But again, Mann's just one of the better players on the bench unit here for Charlotte. So they're going to probably look to get him some more minutes. He was a guy who was having a very good start to the year early on, scoring wise. So Trey Mann's another guy who I like at 4,400 as a value option. But outside of that, those are pretty much the main names that popped to me. Brandon Miller's another guy who had a big game a couple nights ago. He should be in for big minutes here again with Bridges out. And again, another pivot off of LaMelo Ball, or maybe if you're not playing LaMelo Ball, maybe if you're going Cade or Anthony Edwards over LaMelo Ball, it makes sense to get Brandon Miller because, again, someone's going to score for the Charlotte team. So if LaMelo Ball's having a down game theory-wise, it might just make sense to pivot there to Miller.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I like that. All right, Bobby, your thoughts there at shooting guard? Any other names you want to throw in the mix?
I think you hit on pretty much everything. Sexton, Castle are probably going to be the two chalkier plays. Castle's the type of player, he's a good defensive player, so he hasn't. There's a good bit of ceiling for him, I would imagine, even as a cash game play. So I think I prefer him to Sexton, even with Clarkson out. And I liked Kyle said, was it Keontae George you were saying?
Yeah.
Well, Keontae George is the pivot in larger field tournaments off of Sexton. I think a way to play shooting guard, Anthony Edwards obviously has point guard, shooting guard eligibility. If you wanted to pay up at shooting guard, getting to Edwards, this is where I would play him at shooting guard. I think that's the way you should play him. If you're playing him, I wouldn't play him in the point guard spot. Brandon Miller, ton of ceiling. I like the analysis of if you're fading ball and playing Cade Cunningham, maybe play some Brandon Miller. He is very chalky, and his range of outcomes are going to be both ends of the spectrum. So I know he had a big game the other night, but just temper your expectations. It is a 4-game slate, so he could get there. And I think he's a fine play. I wouldn't go too heavy on it. Jaden Ivey, for me, you could probably make the same rule with Cade Cunningham. If I'm playing, you could obviously play Cade and LaMelo, but if you're playing LaMelo, maybe get some Jaden Ivey on the other side, and you play Jaden Ivey at the shooting guard position. Julian Champagny. I don't know if I ever say that name right.
Champagny, I think, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah. 4,600 for Champagny. He's going to be chalky. I'm out. I'm just not that interested. Same thing with Anthony Black with his shooting guard eligibility. He's going to be starting, it looks like. So with KCP being ruled out, there's just Franz is going to get shots there. There's guys that can take shots away from him. He's 4-4. He's fine, but I don't love it. I think Trey Mann was the interesting one by Kyle. He would be someone I'd be looking to get to a little bit. That's pretty much it. I don't really love the shooting guard position. I think paying up for Ant to be differentiated is definitely interesting on this 4-game slate.
Okay. How about small forward? What are we doing there?
Yeah, Lauri Markkanen. Just think he's a strong play. 7,100. You're removing Clarkson, San Antonio. I like Lauri's game, so I'm fine with playing him.
God, I love that play. I absolutely love that play. I'm making a lineup right now and putting him in.
Brandon Miller. We talked about him at shooting guard. I have the same spiel there at 6,900. He's fine. Cody Martin for this is where I think you get more value is playing the $3,800 Cody Martin point guard shooting for small forward eligibility and playing him at small forward and not at point guard. I think that's an interesting way to play Cody Martin, playing him in the small forward position. Big body Keldon Johnson at 5,300. I think he's fine for San Antonio at that price tag, 5,300. Could always get to some LeBron. 10-1's a lot for LeBron, though. I prefer Ball, Cade, getting to those guys on the slate, I would imagine. Franz is my favorite player in the league, and if he's going to be chalky, I'm still getting over on Franz Wagner. I think Franz is probably between Markkinen and Franz, like even at 9,100, until Franz is like 10K, I'm playing him. So if people are going to be under the field, I'm going to try to get over on Franz, and that's pretty much small forward.
Love that. Okay. Kyle, your thoughts at small forward?
Yeah, I like the breakdown on Franz there. He's sort of transitioned into a player who was, a wing role player, and obviously Paolo being out has helped, but now he has also upped his usage rate, his assist rate, his rebound rate, and his stock rate. So he's pretty much doing everything better than he has in the past, which is kind of what you want to see out of these young players. So I think he's a better player than LeBron straight up, let alone for the $1,000 discount there. So I like the call there on Franz Wagner. I think he's a great play. I also like Laurie quite a bit with no Jordan Clarkson. 7,100 just seems a little bit too cheap here, especially against a Spurs team with no Wemby. Obviously, their defense takes a hit in that reality. So I think Laurie makes a lot of sense here at 7,100. And again, especially if you aren't playing Colin Sexton, I do think it makes sense to load up on some other Jazz pieces because this is going to be a very popular game. So I think that's a good way to attack it. Miller's also here. I think LeBron's fine if you want to get to him, but again, I just prefer the two sort of spend up options or the two high tier options above him. Lauri Markkinen and Franz Wagner for the discounts that they give you. Other options at small forward, it's a fairly weak position, honestly. I don't have a lot sticking out here. Markkinen and Wagner definitely my two favorites. If you're looking for some value options, Harrison Barnes is the same sort of problem that Chris Paul offers, but even more so just because he doesn't really do a whole lot from a fantasy perspective. But he's also not a guy that's going to play mid 30s pretty much ever. Similar to Paul, 32 is like his ceiling essentially right now with his minutes. You can bet on some of these value guys like Tim Hardaway or Malik Beasley and hope they get hot from a shooting perspective. But again, that's just purely looking for a dart throw value piece in your lineup. Other than that, there's not a ton of guys who pop out as staples of builds here.
Okay, perfect. Bring me to power forward, Kyle.
Yeah, so small forward was definitely one of the weaker positions. So happy to talk about power forward. Franz and Laurie are both small forward, power forward eligible, so you can easily pivot both of these guys to power forward or just play both of them here. Very easy to get them in your builds. John Collins, again, same sort of deal as Lauri Markkinen. You're probably not wanting to play both of these guys together. You can, but just looking to capitalize on upside, I would say these two probably overlap quite a bit in terms of their minutes and what they do on the court. The main difference is Laurie can probably get a little bit hotter from the three-point arc and maybe score a little bit better from there. But for the most part, you're hoping for big points and rebound nights for both of these guys. So you're probably not wanting to play both those guys together. But one or the other definitely makes some sense. Going down the board a little bit, Grant Williams here at 5K, 32 minutes is where we project him currently. I think that is a good number to have him. And then when you account for Bridges being out, you're probably going to see his minutes go up a little bit as well, or at least at the very bare minimum, stabilize a little bit here for Grant Williams at 5K. Again, not a huge permanent guy, but they're definitely worse permanent players that you can roster tonight. So Williams would make some sense as a value option. Tobias Harris, again, same sort of deal as like the Tim Hardaway mold, where you're kind of just hoping that they get hot from scoring. But again, you can definitely find better value pieces and or better pieces that are just a little bit more expensive. So I'd probably stay away from Tobias Harris, but he was a guy that was popping a little bit. Other than that, some other value pieces. Jonathan Isaac has been playing some pretty significant minutes, considering what he had early in his career. Obviously, a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries, but we project him for 22 minutes. He's a guy who can play 22 minutes and score 35 DK points, or he can play 22 minutes and score 9. So he's a very high range of outcomes type player there. But he's a good permanent player on average. He's just very boom or bust. But don't mind him as a dart play, a very deep GPP option there. So he's probably the cheapest guy that I'd be really looking at here tonight. But other than that, I do like some of the spend up options.
Okay, very good. Did get a question, Bobby, from Jonathan. You talked about your love for Franz. Both of you like Franz. He says, do you have any worries about Franz having to defend AD and possibly getting into foul trouble? I don't know if Franz is the fouling type. Is that a concern or something you've considered, Bobby?
I understand the concern. If that's your reasoning to be underweight on Franz, that's fine. I can give you some good power forward options other than Franz.
I don't think Franz will see much of AD.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I think Wendell Carter is expected to be back, so he'll probably deal with him quite a bit.
Okay, very good. Bobby, your favorites at power forward. And yes, a lot of people saying FanDuel's not working. That's why we're starting on DK, hopefully. in 5 minutes. When we go to FanDuel, it will be back up, but I don't know. Bobby, what are you doing at power forward?
Fingers crossed. Tobias Harris is probably my favorite GPP play in that Charlotte-Detroit game. I think he's very interesting at 6,200. It's always tough to say with Tobias what kind of performance you're going to get, but on a 4-game slate, I'm fine with it. Grant Williams at 5K, he would be someone who I'd definitely have exposure to at that tag in that game environment. Never loved playing Grant Williams, but I think he's fine tonight in the 4-gamer. Julius Randle, people are going to play Markkanen. They're going to play Franz. I think Julius Randle at 8,300 power forward center eligibility is an interesting play at power forward tonight. You can also make the case for Naz Reid at 5,300, like Naz Reid on the Timberwolves a good bit as well. Laurie and Franz are good plays, like we talked about. They're going to be the chalk, but those are like the main pivots for me currently. I'm not getting too much LeBron. The Isaac call is interesting. Like, I feel like Isaac should be so much better than what he is, and he's 4,300, and I don't know. And I had a lot higher expectations when he came out.
Okay. I want your thoughts at center, and I'll start with the simple question. With Wemby out, is there a guy in San Antonio that are like, oh, this is it? Is it Collins? Is he going to get full center run? Like, what's the play there, Bobby?
Yeah, if Collins is ruled out, it's going to be Bassey. I think Bassey's the one you might want to look to at 4K.
Wait, is Collins questionable or something?
Collins is yeah. Is he? What was he ruled out, or is he Q tag? Did we get?
I don't think we've had any updated news on him, but he was questionable.
Okay, I didn't realize
he was. The thing is, I think Bassey's fine anyways. Like, I think Bassey's a good play regardless at 4K.
Yeah.
Followed by Bassey, Rudy Gobert at 6,600. Jalen Duren. Charlotte can't cover inside. Duren could have a fantastic game tonight. People are going to go to John Collins, I feel like, as the chalk play, power forward center. I would probably be underweight that. Same with Zach Collins, with him being questionable. Like, I just think Bassey for 2K less might be the better option. I like Jacob Podol a good bit at 8,100. He's someone who I like to get an allocation to. You'd see basically Randall defense. I'm fine with Podol. They're going to need Podol tonight, I would imagine. AD is a super strong play as always, but I think he falls behind these other guys for me currently. Yeah, that's pretty much better.
How about Musa Diabate, who is getting the start for the Pistons tonight? Any interest there? Because he's 4K and he's starting.
Yeah, he's starting for Bridges. He's not the highest permanent guy. Like you mentioned, he is 4K though, and he's going to be on the floor. Although again, kind of looping back to my Trey Mann point, I don't think he's a starter who's going to be starting and instantly playing 30 plus minutes. Let me see where we have him at right now. Yeah, so 28 minutes is where we project him. I feel like that's probably the high of where he'll end up playing. I actually think a guy like him starting is better for a guy like Josh Green or Trey Mann coming off the bench, because I don't think he's going to be a guy who is in a closing rotation for the Hornets. So a guy like Trey Mann or Josh Green will likely close the game for this team. So you can play him. He's viable now that he's starting, but I wouldn't count on 30 plus minutes for him. I would still probably prefer Trey Mann of the value guys there, but he's in play now.
Okay, very good. Kyle, any other names you want to throw in at the center spot before we kick it over to FanDuel?
I guess real quick, Zach Collins was listed available on the most recent injury report, so he's good to go. But like Bobby said, Charles Bassey's still in play. These guys are likely just going to split the center minutes, probably 27, 21, 26, 22 there in favor of Collins, but Bassey is the better permanent guy, especially on FanDuel, where blocks are worth 3 points. So I think he's a better play over on FanDuel, and he should be pretty contrarian, because I do think a lot of people instantly, think Zach Collins when Wemby's out. But I think both those guys are firmly in play at the center position. Couple of spend up options, Jakob Podol, Bobby mentioned. I think he's a good play here. He's been absolutely destroying it this year. I do think Takes a little bit of a hit with Barnes returning, but again, Barnes is going to be on a pretty, I would assume for him, a pretty strict minutes limit there. So that should still help him at that price, 8,100. I think he can still get there. A guy who I just don't want to give up on yet, Jalen Duren, 6,400 on DraftKings there. We saw the big game last time out, right? 52.5 DK points. He played 30 minutes. This is the upside that I know he's had a really bad year, but that's the upside that he has, right? He does have the double upside. He had 22 rebounds last game. So it's like in a great matchup like this, once again, Charlotte and Chicago are pretty similar matchups. Charlotte has a very small team. I mean, they're rolling out Grant Williams as their center. Duren could crush this matchup. I don't think people are fully confident in going back to him, considering he's had a bad year. But maybe they do a little bit because of the great game last time out. But Duren's one of my favorite tournament plays today.
Okay, very good. Guys, we know that you are always looking for value, and we've got it right here at RotoGrinders. It's the busiest time of the sports calendar. It means it's the perfect time to sign up for RG Combo. For a limited time, you can get your first month of combo access for $79.99. It is just $5 more than NBA Premium, and you get everything else that's included. I think it's basically every sport except NASCAR. So do not pass up on that phenomenal value that we've got going on right now. Now let's kick it over to FanDuel, and FanDuel is too busy glazing Aaron Judge on Twitter instead of fixing their site. Are they doing that? FanDuel's social media is pretty brutal, honestly. Hey, let's talk about LaMelo Ball, because I want to play him, and I looked at his game log, and he got 24 minutes last game, and the chat is telling me it's because he got benched for sucking. Is that alarming, or is that like, okay, now they're going to give him 40 minutes because they did the slap on the wrist thing? Kyle, are you worried that he's going to get benched again for sucking?
I think he got banged up a little bit last game, and then I believe he was also dealing with some foul trouble. So I don't think that was totally the picture.
Chat
there.
tells me he was just sucking. To be clear, Chat says he just sucked, but maybe not.
I mean, he wasn't having the greatest game, but he still had 12 points, 5 assists. The turnover was always a problem with LaMelo Ball, and he did have 4 in 23 minutes. So I'm sure that was maybe a part of it, but like again, I wouldn't be too concerned with that. LaMelo Ball is the franchise player for Charlotte, so I wouldn't be too worried about that going forward.
Who did they play the other night?
They played Brooklyn.
Was it in Brooklyn?
It was.
Yeah, maybe he was out partying in Brooklyn. Now he's in Detroit. There's not. I wouldn't imagine there's much to do in Detroit.
Whoa! Come on, there's plenty to do.
It's a different.
You live in Detroit?
Not in Detroit. I'm like 40 minutes away from Detroit, though.
Did you just move there? I feel like you didn't live there when we talked.
No, I've been in Michigan for my whole life.
Michigan. Oh yeah, you have been in Michigan. Yeah. All right.
Anyways, let's dive into it here. LaMelo Ball, obviously, like I'm playing him now that you've told me. Like you said, he's the franchise, so I feel better about it. You're right. Give him a slap on the wrist, but run him back out there. What else are we doing on FanDuel at point guard, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys still carry over from site to site. LaMelo Ball, Cade Cunningham, Colin Sexton, and Cass a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, but he has point guard, shooting guard eligibility, so it's pretty easy to get him in the lineups if you want to. But I don't think he's as much of a priority over there on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. Chris Paul, 6,100. I do like him more on FanDuel. I know I mentioned the issues about him. Having the lack of minutes ceiling there at 6,100, but I still think the price tag on FanDuel is a little bit more appropriate than on DraftKings. Conley is the really cheap option on FanDuel that maybe carries over compared to DraftKings, 4,900 on FanDuel, so he maybe stands out a little bit more there. Jaden Ivey, 6,400. Jalen Suggs is actually priced pretty nicely on FanDuel, 6,700. I know we kind of got done hyping up Franz Wagner a few minutes ago, but still, Suggs is definitely a viable scoring option there for the Magic. So at 6,700, he makes sense. Keontae George, Anthony Black, Trey Mann, some other value options. George is probably my favorite of those three. Again, I do like him, especially if you're not playing Colin Sexton. I think it's going to be a pretty stark difference in the public with rostering Sexton over George. Sexton is the better permanent player and the better scorer, but George could easily go out there and put up double with 12 plus points, 10 assists, grab a couple steals, and easily outscore Sexton. So definitely do want to keep George circled for tournaments. But in terms of other value options, that's pretty much it. I do like spending up on at least one of these positions. with LaMelo or Cade, if not both. And then after that, kind of those mid-range guys I mentioned.
Okay, good stuff. Bobby, your thoughts at point guard on FanDuel, please.
Yeah, if DiVincenzo sits and Mike Conley plays, I think I like Mike Conley at the point guard position a good bit on FanDuel. LaMelo, Cade, we kind of gave the spiel a couple times now. I think they're both fine on FanDuel as well as DraftKings, especially on a 4-game slate. Like, there's not many spend-up options, so those two are completely good to go. Jaden Ivey, Colin Sexton, just names we've already kind of hit on. Stephen Castle, Keontae George. I think these guys are fine on FanDuel. Chris Paul, I think, is going to be the chalkiest. Probably still be under on Chris Paul on FanDuel as well. But, yeah, that's pretty much point guard for me. Anthony Black, I never want to play him. You can throw him in there. Jalen Suggs, yeah, Kyle hit on these guys. So.
Okay, then take me to shooting guard.
Shooting guard, Colin Sexton, Stephen Castle. I think these guys are going to be the two of the chalkier plays at the shooting guard position. I think here is where you can play Jalen Suggs a good bit. Would prefer rostering Suggs at the shooting guard position than at point guard. I think you can make the same case for Anthony Black as well. I don't want to play Anthony Black, but shooting guard, FanDuel seems to be where you're going to play him if you're playing him tonight. Ian Edwards is also available at the shooting guard position on FanDuel. Fine there. Brandon Miller. We already named Keontae George at point guard, but he's fine at shooting guard as well. We're going to do a lot of crossover here. Jaden Ivey again. Maybe some Cole Anthony, 3,700 shooting guard, point guard eligible. I might prefer him at shooting guard. Neil Alexander Walker, if Mike Conley sat, he would step in, and I think he'd become very chalky. I think he's available. If DiVincenzo plays, he's fine. I don't really expect him to play currently. Kyle maybe can fill us in more on that. Yeah, and that's all I have at the shooting guard position.
Very good. Kyle, shooting guard thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a great feel on the DiVincenzo status right now, but he is questionable still, so I guess we'll see how that shakes out. If he does sit, I would assume that would help a guy like Alexander Walker, maybe get some more minutes off the bench there. A lot of the guys I mentioned at point guard do carry over to shooting guard. Sexton, Castle, Suggs, Ivy, Keontae George, Anthony Black. So a lot of these guys carry over. Trey Mann is a guy who I like more on DraftKings than on FanDuel. He fits the DraftKings scoring better with a 3-point bonus, and then also he's more expensive on FanDuel, but you can still play him on FanDuel, but definitely prefer him over on DraftKings. Anthony Edwards is the one guy that I would probably didn't really talk about at the point guard position because he doesn't have point guard eligibility like he does on DraftKings. Shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel. And again, I don't think he'll go as overlooked on FanDuel as I think he will on DraftKings, getting lost in the shuffle with LaMelo Ball and Cade Cunningham. But, nonetheless, still think Edwards is a strong play on FanDuel. And then Brandon Miller, same deal as on DraftKings. If you're not playing LaMelo Ball, I think it makes sense to play Brandon Miller. Again, just looking to capture some upside from this game. So he's definitely in play there at $7K on FanDuel. I guess a value option or two on this on FanDuel. Black's 4,900, Champagny is 4,800, and then Tim Hardaway at 4,200. That's probably the cheapest I would go.
Okay. Take me to small forward, Kyle.
Yep. So again, carrying over from shooting guard, Anthony Edwards, Brandon Miller, those guys are available over there. Lauri Markkanen, Franz Wagner are small forward, power forward eligible. So like both of those guys, love the price tag here on Markkanen. He's, I think, just too cheap on both sides. So I think he projects really well. Anthony Edwards, again, he's a strong play. I think he's too cheap on FanDuel, much more expensive on DraftKings. Will be more popular on FanDuel, but rightfully so, in my opinion. RJ Barrett's 8,400 here. I think it's fairly difficult to play him. Just because with Scotty Barnes returning, he does take a hit. But again, you can still argue that, okay, Barnes isn't going to be fully healthy, still take advantage of the lower upside or the lower ownership on RJ Barrett there, and maybe hope that he goes lower owned and maybe still is able to get a lot of the usage there for a Toronto team with Scotty Barnes limited. LeBron here at 9.9, same deal over on FanDuel. I prefer the cheaper guys. The price difference between him and Wagner aren't as significant on FanDuel. It's only 700 compared to 1,000 on DraftKings, but still would prefer Markkanen, still prefer Anthony Edwards, and probably even Brandon Miller for the price, especially if you're not playing LaMelo Ball. In terms of value options, Tobias Harris 6,500. Do prefer him on DraftKings, but you can still play him on FanDuel. Keldon Johnson at 5,600. I think he's in play. Potentially a really sneaky option as well with no Wemby, a guy who could maybe benefit from some more minutes here. They're playing a lot of young guys above him right now. And then obviously you have the two vets there with Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, especially Harrison Barnes getting minutes in a spot where he could potentially play. But again, Johnson could potentially go overlooked here, so I don't mind him at 5,600 on FanDuel.
Very good. Small forward, Bobby, your thoughts?
Yeah, Martin and Franz, two of my favorite guys in the league. I can play them tonight at small forward on FanDuel for sure. Definitely going to be under on LeBron. I think a sneaky one, I don't know if Kyle named him, but it's Tobias Harris. I feel like he gets lost in the shuffle in this game. We talked about him on DraftKings. I'm fine with him at small forward on FanDuel. Shampenny you can play at small forward on FanDuel. He's 4,800. Go right ahead. Fine with that as well. Jonathan Isaac, I think, may be a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. He's at 4,700. Who else here do I like? That's pretty much it. Keldon Johnson, I guess you can take a shot on. I know Roth's a big fan of big body. Keldon Johnson probably plays a similar one-on-one game style, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Just take out his legs and he'll be all right.
It's power, inside, outside game. I can do it all.
Yeah. Oh, I have one more. Tristan Da Silva. I don't mind him at 4,100 at small forward on FanDuel as like a cheapie.
Very nice. That name actually just was added into the chat, so I'm glad you said that. Take me to power forward, unless we just did power forward, in which case don't.
No, we did small forward, Rob.
Thank you. Okay, power forward. Bobby, what are your thoughts?
Julius Randle versus Toronto. I think he's a super strong play on FanDuel. John Collins, he's going to hit a lot of stuff. I'm probably be underweight Collins, but I feel like he's probably the chalk option on both sites. Zach Collins, he's a play that you can get to. FanDuel scoring kind of fits him better. Like him more on FanDuel, where I think I like Bassey on DK a good bit. Kyle Filipowski, 4,700 for Utah. He's an interesting one. I think that you can get to him. Seeing, I don't know what we have for ownership there currently, but I'd probably be over it. Franz Wagner, talked about him, favorite player in the league. I'll play him. Naz Reid, I think he's in play at power forward as well in FD at 5,400. Then LeBron and AD. Definitely prefer AD to LeBron on FanDuel. So I think you can get to Davis prior to getting to LeBron. Lauri Markkanen's also an option as well. Rui's questionable, but I think he's in play at power forward on FanDuel if you want to go there. Grant Williams, I don't know, that kind of rounds it out.
Okay. I just want you to know that having Franz Wagner as your favorite player in the league is really a great flex. It's like a I know ball flex because he's no one's favorite player in the league, right?
He's my favorite guy. He's
awesome.
Good.
I approve of that. Let's see, Kyle, who is your favorite player in the league? Not to put you on the spot.
Man, you can see him behind me, or I guess over here, Steph. It's kind of a cliche answer, but I've actually, I'm sure everyone will say this who likes Steph, but I've loved him since his Davison days. So, yeah.
And you're of the younger generation too, where like you
saying I'm old, Ruff? You saying I'm old?
Yeah, you and I are old, Bobby. Are you as old as I am? I'm 39.
35.
Oh shit! And then, Kyle, you're like 22, right?
I'm 28.
Yeah, you're 22.
You're regretting those 12 points more.
I am. The 12 points are. The 12 points starting to hurt more and more. Yeah.
For what it's worth,
Kyle,
we did just get potentially. We did get some potentially. It's not confirmed yet, but Mike Conley is listed. He's grayed out on the NBA.com site, which typically means there's some news that he could potentially be out there. Not confirmed yet, but if he's out, that would definitely be interesting.
Neil Alexander Walker would be the guy.
You want Nall?
I think so, yeah.
We could potentially see Rob Dillingham, the rookie, start. I guess it could be difficult to assume that off the bat. But either way, both those guys and DiVincenzo would get a boost as well. So that would definitely
be on DiVincenzo because he's obviously a bigger usage piece.
He's not great out in there. And again, that's not like the end all be all for news there. It's just that doesn't happen often unless the guy's actually out. And DiVincenzo's not great out. So I would assume DiVincenzo. Right now, I'm assuming DiVincenzo in and Conley is highly, highly questionable.
Interesting. Okay. Something that we will certainly monitor. Kyle, favorite plays at power forward?
Yeah. So again, like Bobby mentioned, a lot of them carry over from the small forwards. In terms of guys who are just, or I guess new to the position, not small forward eligible, Julius Randle's a great call. Like him quite a bit there. John Collins, power forward center eligible. Zach Collins is power forward center eligible. It's a little bit easier to play Zach Collins over Charles Bassey on FanDuel because you can play Collins at power forward and not lock up your center position. You only get one center spot on FanDuel. So I do like Collins more than Bassey on FanDuel. Grant Williams as well, Keldon Johnson. Scotty Barnes, again, I think it's difficult to play him. He's one of my favorite players in the league that I think are up and coming, but again, difficult to play him here with the minutes limit. So probably not getting to him tonight. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for me.
Okay, then take me to center.
Yeah, for centers, obviously Anthony Davis is the spend up that I probably am most afraid of not playing. Again, I just like both the spend up point guards and Anthony Edwards over on FanDuel. Jakob Poeltl, 8K over there, like him quite a bit. And then once again, probably my favorite play on the slate, or at least one of them, Jalen Duren. I just think he's going to be, way too low. And I know there's been some frustration around him with Isaiah Stewart getting starter minutes or almost starting one game, and Jalen Duren kind of dealing with foul trouble some games and just straight out being outplayed by Isaiah Stewart minutes wise. But hopefully Jalen Duren can kind of build in the momentum from last game and continue to play 30+ minutes here. So I'm going to go back to Duren at 6,600 in a great matchup.
Okay. Bobby, you got a couple names at center. We're about 2 minutes until lock.
Looks like John Collins, Zach Collins, and Gobert would probably be the chalkiest of the center position. I like Charles Bassey a good bit at 4,800 as a pivot. Jakob Poeltl, I think, is fine too. You can always play Anthony Davis on FanDuel. And I'm with Kyle. I think Jalen Duren might be the best play in the GPP winner.
Nice. I may get another lineup and get him in. We are moments until lock, and I want to give a shout out to Fluff in the RG Discord, who says, "Thank you to Crunch Time and the projections team for helping me win almost 20K last night."
Oh, wow.
Congrats. I
Nice.
thought I had a big night. I put down $2 and came out with 10, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. 20K is phenomenal. Good job, man. I feel like the projections team in Crunch Time has just been killing it.
Kyle's on the projections team, so he's thinking the right guy.
Congratulations. Good job, Bobby. Let's see what else we've got here. Of course, a lot of gripe about what's happening over on FanDuel. I've barely heard AD mentioned all day. Great point. Someone else said, I haven't heard Connect mentioned all day. He's been hot. What are your interest on those two guys, Bobby and then Kyle?
AD's fine on FD all the time, not getting too much Connect. I know he was unbelievable the other night. I'm not going back, though. I don't know if Kyle is.
Okay, Kyle?
Yeah, with Rui back, the minutes aren't really fully certain. I mean, I would expect him to start again after the big game and really a couple of big games for Connect, but I don't think it's a lock. They could easily kind of want him to continue to come off the bench. But again, I do think he will start, but it's probably hard to argue he's going to, continue to see mid-30s minutes there with Rui back.
Gotcha. Okay. A few more questions. DK Cash. Kyle, you want Collins or Mark? Markk?
Yeah, that's Markin. I do think Markin is the better cash option.
Okay. Top Shelf Vision says, you guys are badass. I've been hitting following your information. Yeah, we are. It's true. We are badass. Yeah, RG Live.
Rob is not badass.
I'm not. I'm a weatherman. It's hard to be badass as
well. He's a weatherman. That's not good. He's a meteorologist. Don't say weatherman.
Thank you, Bobby. Your projections are great. Oh, look at this. Dancing Fighter G says, I won 10K last night.
Wow.
All of you are awesome. Man, we need to get these in our Tuesday promos here. I got to grab some of these screen grabs. Let's see what else we've got. By the way, we're going to be back here. We've hit lock. We're going to be back in 15 minutes for our pre-lock NFL show. And you want great free content, that's it right there for you. Weather will likely be highly involved as well in that one. So make sure you're following me on Twitter for any weather updates at Kevin Roth WX. Make sure you follow these guys as well. You got Kyle, you got Bobby, you got two of the sharpest minds in the biz. For everybody at home, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you in 15 minutes. You have been crushed.